Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of The Fizz Show. And today, I have a special guest from the tourism sector who is going to sit down with me and have a very candid conversation about what's going on in the tourism sector. As you all know, the president of Zambia, Mr. Hichilema Hakainde, has indicated that he wants to see areas such as tourism grow. And what better way than for us to have the man that sits at the helm of tourism in Zambia? Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present to you Mr. Matongo. Mr. Matongo, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, and thanks for your invitation.
Absolutely, Mr. Matongo. Mr. Matongo, thank you so much for joining us on this particular show. Now, you're obviously a public official who has been seen in several situations, such as economic activity around tourism, etc. But for some of our viewers, and by the way, we're 20,000 strong on Facebook. We've got over a following of over 70,000 on LinkedIn as well. People would want to know who is the man at the helm of Zambia Tourism Agency. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I mean, I can take 3 hours to talk about myself. Of late, interestingly, people identify me with my interview with Richard Quest. And I didn't know that it had gone that viral. When I did it innocently. He caught me off guard, and I could think and talk at the same time. But just a bit, I mean, obviously by training, I probably represent 3 different backgrounds, okay? At undergraduate, I obviously studied economics. And then at postgraduate, I had the privilege of obviously studying MBA at one time. It was fashionable to do MBA, so we all did MBAs.
Right.
And then obviously I went to specialize and did a master's in marketing. And then further I went to specialize in what we call consumer psychology. Consumer psychology is a branch of marketing which is quite interesting. So we read what consumers go through before they purchase a service or a product, and that's the fundamental of any success in marketing, is to understand what goes on in consumers' minds and how you can influence them. So this includes tourists.
Absolutely.
And I find that very, very interesting. I've worked in private sector. I worked for 5 different multinationals, the breweries, the sugar industry. I spent a lot of time at Zambia Sugar. I did 18 years of my working life at Zambia Sugar, but I did 5 different jobs, from international marketing to logistics, distribution, sales, marketing, corporate communication. So if my communication is better, then it's because I had to play. And then of course running with corporate affairs at some point. Then I took a leap of faith. I wanted to try public sector, but this is actually my second half of my career. I left Zambia Sugar to go and work for Zambia Development Agency.
Absolutely. And you present a portrait of a professional who has been on both sides. You have had a very huge impact that I think a lot of people would not be aware of, especially with your role at ZTA, and now coming into the role at at tourism. One would even argue that government got their man. But being at the helm of it, are you able to just tell us a bit what the role of Zambia Tourism Agency is? And I would like you to also just speak to, just some of the nuances that maybe a lot of people don't fully understand, because, it's a very wide open space and it's got lots of opportunities. How does your agency fit in to trying to, build the building blocks that can create value around that sector?
Yeah. And again, thanks for the opportunity, because not so many people actually understand the mandate of Zambia Tourism Agency. You know that it has its complexion has changed over the years. It
Correct.
started just as a little marketing board and started developing. But for now, where we are, when it was converted into an agency, it was given 2 huge mandates. on one side is to market Zambia as a tourism destination, and that's huge because you compete with the rest of the world. The tourism sector does not have competitors because everyone plays in the same space.
Correct.
You are looking for a tourist in UK, a tourist in Australia, a tourist in Zimbabwe, and they can go anywhere. So every company, every country competes for the same tourists. That's on one side. The second mandate is what we call regulation of the sector. And this is important for me to put perspective to it. On one side, there's licensing. On the other side, there's what they call grading. When you put the two together, the actual objective of having regulation or for ZTA to regulate the sector is to set standards. So the two, people tend to argue that they should be separated. I'm a proponent of not separating them.
Why
And
so?
the reason is that the standards or the regulation side gives you the standard or the quality assurance for the product that the marketing side is going to market. So just think of it. You have big hotels in this country. You can talk about all these branded hotels. You can run from Intercontinental, Radisson, Protea. They are big, they are known. We help them to bring in tourists to stay in the hotels. But tourists come because they know a destination called Zambia.
Correct.
But at the same time, you are likely to have a small little guest house somewhere in Choma or in Mufumbwe. When these tourists say, we are actually want to go and see the source of the Zambezi River, they'll stop over in Mwinulunga or somewhere on the way to stay in this guest house, which is unregulated, unlicensed. No one knows the standard. If they have a bad experience there, what they are going to share with the rest of the world is their experience in Zambia.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter how good the Radisson or Intercontinental is, if it sits, and the expression I normally use is, even if you wear the best perfume and go and sit next to the garbage bin, no one will appreciate your perfume. And that's what Destination Zambia is all about. So the regulation is not for revenue collection. Like President Ischilema always says, we don't regulate to earn revenue for the country. No,
Right.
we regulate to set the minimum standard so that when a tourist comes, the experience they are going to have, we are guaranteed. We are giving a quality assurance that whether it's in Mufumbwe, whether it's in Kasumbalesa, whether in Choma or Gwembe, you are going to stay in a guest house that meets these minimum standards to protect the destination that we are marketing. So that's the purpose and the main objective of having regulation with ZTA. In the olden days, the basics or the theories of marketing said a satisfied customer would tell 5 others.
Correct.
We used to learn this in books. And a dissatisfied customer then was going to tell 15 others. That has completely changed. There's social media now. If you are going to bring a celebrity or someone who has a social media following of, let's say, 10 million, and then goes into this little guest house. I'm just using this as an example. Maybe somewhere in Mpika, Tafimbwa Lubiro Lodge, and has a bad experience and goes on his media platforms and posts.
It's a recipe for disaster.
That's 10 million people across the world hearing about this bad experience of a destination called Zambia. It takes away, it waters down all the marketing effort we would have done for the destination. So that's the link. And that's why we regulate to set standards, and then obviously we market. So that's just a perspective about ZTA.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll turn your attention now to, the focus areas. Honorable Sukumba has talked about, the grand master plan around tourism. He sings about it every time, and every time I meet him, he said, look, we've got specific focus areas that, we want to obviously target. Are you able to tell us a little bit about some of those focus areas?
Yes, and I mean, thanks to his vision and leadership, he's been a friend of the sector for a long time.
Yes, and he was on the other side as well, because he was in the tourism sector as well.
He understands.
Yes.
And obviously, over the process, last year we set up a very ambitious marketing plan, we know what we really want to do. Part of that is first to just identify. It's easy to go with people call the shotgun approach, where you just say, you know how a shotgun is, just fires, and
Correct.
if it catches an animal, it catches. But we wanted to be a bit more focused, what we call the rifle approach. It's more impactful. So we identify which markets we want to go for. So traditionally, there are markets that have brought us quite some traffic in terms of tourists. We don't want to lose them.
Correct.
So we want to retain these and grow them. So our key source markets being the UK, Europe, and North America. We've maintained these. We want to do a lot of activity there so that we can grow the numbers. But we've also identified what we call emerging markets. What are the emerging markets? China. China is huge of numbers. They're traveling the whole world. Then we've got what we call the GCC, basically the Arab world. They don't move in big numbers, but they spend big. When they come, you are assured that the revenue for the country, which what we call tourism receipts, there's quite some impact. They stay longer. The money is not a problem. But we've also seen there's a lot of business tourists coming out of India. So India is another emerging market that we have looked at. And then there's a lot of interest from South Americans coming out of interest. I don't know whether they want comparison. Some say it's because we have similar the weather pattern as them. So we have seen Brazil, to be specific. They're exploring the whole world, and we targeted it as another emerging market. But other than that, we have a second tier of emerging markets where we have attached what we call tourism attaches. These include South Korea, Japan, Malaysia, Turkey. They are also markets that we are targeting. And to do that, obviously, we had to come up with specific strategies that we'll employ over a period of 3 years, and hoping these are going to attract the traffic we are looking for. Part of that, just to share, is obviously we participate in what we call travel shows. They are big travel shows. Next week, there's what we call the ITB in Germany. It's the biggest travel show. You need to have presence there. Correct. There's a lot of traffic. What we are doing a bit more, and probably slightly different, is not to go there and put a stand for ZTA and attract people to come. They will not come. So we go there, secure a bigger space, do a big stand, and then we get private sector and say, can you come into the stand? Correct. The model we use is we, as Zambia tourism agents, we market the destination called Zambia. We don't sell. Who sells? Who creates jobs? Who brings in the revenue in the country? It's private sector. The hotels, the safari lodges, the adventure companies. So we pull those and bring them in. Last year we went to WTM. We had a record 22 private sector on our stand. This year we are going to ITB. We are going with the 30 private sector, from travel agents to safaris to hotels to adventure tour operators. They are all coming there, including the airlines. We'll be going to Indawa in Durban, and we've targeted to take 35. These are huge numbers, never done before, but that's the model that we are using. Other than that, of course, we want to use the digital space. Right. We've given ourselves a very, very ambitious target, realizing from the feedback we get that Zambia is not a very well-known destination. And that has led to it being what we call in the tourism sector an add-on destination, meaning it's not a primary destination. An average trade person in these markets we go to, when they are marketing and selling packages, they are thinking, okay, no, we'll take you to Cape Town, and then from Cape Town, maybe you can proceed to see the Victoria Falls. So we are always considered as a secondary destination, okay? For two reasons. One, we are not a very well-known destination. Number two, access into Zambia by air is limited. For example, we have no direct flight now from Europe or from the US into Zambia. You have to go through 2-3 other destinations. Okay, so that's part of the challenge. But what we are trying to do now is, on one side, how can we do what you call nation branding? Get people to know there's a country called Zambia. and this is the Zambia that actually is the host to the famous wonder of the world called the Victoria Falls.
Yes.
We need to get the message there before we can actually sell the destination.
Absolutely.
So we set ourselves a target. We say digitally this year, by 31st December 2024, we need to hit through our social media platforms at least 1 billion views across the world. That just gives the information that people get to know where Zambia is. Okay? Then we can build on that now to start now marketing specific products that we have. The Victoria Falls, the wildlife, the good people of Zambia, and the list goes on and on. The museums we have, the history of Zambia, peaceful country, never been to war. An average Zambian, I'm sure you're aware, an average Zambian has never touched a gun. You know, at my age, I'm over 50. I've never shot a gun before.
Neither have I.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is very interesting information, and just as well that you've brought that up, because very recently, the agency announced, the appointment of PC Agency of the UK to help market Zambia. Just tell us about the rationale behind that. And also, we've also noted that, there was some concern by certain segments of society that were wondering, why not a Zambian company? And we believe that this is something that possibly you've, in the past, has been done before. But just tell us about the rationale there. And what does PC Agency bring to the game? Because from the reputation that they have, we believe that they're going to position Zambia. But we want to hear it from the agency itself. Yeah. What does PC Agency, being put in the jigsaw puzzle of Market Zambia, do for you?
I'm actually happy you've asked this question. There's a lot of perception around it. And like I indicated to you, I have worked for more than 30 years in the marketing circles. I've worked with the different local agencies. I've worked for an agency before. So we started thinking, we have tourism attaches. We've gone to market destination Zambia in all these markets I was talking about. Mm-hmm. We are not making the impact we are looking for. But the most critical one was we even struggled to understand the consumer psychology of tourists in there. You need to understand the behavioral patterns of the different tourists in the different source markets you are looking at. Sure. You need to understand how the trade works, because you not market a destination and sell packages direct. An average tourist across the world, they buy their travel packages through third parties, what we call the trade. Cool. You need to know how it operates. And we realized with our own effort, we are struggling to penetrate. So we benchmarked. We looked at our colleagues in Zimbabwe. We looked at Kenya, that is driving huge numbers. We look at Rwanda. It's a new baby on the tourism world, but they are making good strides. We looked at Egypt. They have big numbers. We discovered that all this, what they did is to actually use agencies that are actually based in those markets. They understand the trade. They have the networks in the trade. These who sell the packages. But they also understand an average behavior of a consumer of tourism products. So we said we need to try this. So what we did as a procedure, we're a government agency, so we follow the public procurement process. Okay. So we went to engage ZPPA. They guided us. This is the process. And what we did was, of course, they did not treat it like it was a local recruitment. Okay? And we did that, and we reached out to 15 different agencies in the US and in UK, because we wanted one that operates and has experience and a track record of success. Not only around those source markets, but also those that have done something for an African country. And we went through the whole process of the public procurement process. Believe you me, frustrating at some point. Mm-hmm. We started the process in March 2023. Wow. PC Agency, we only signed the contract on the 5th of January 2024. Wow. Took us close to 9 to 10 months to run with the process. But that's a requirement of law, and we couldn't go around that. Okay. But eventually, PC Agency emerged as, in terms of knowledge of Africa, what they've done before, but also other countries that they've helped. I mean,
Yes.
one would be interested to know that they ran with the Visit to
Visit
Rwanda
Rwanda,
campaign,
yes.
which was a huge success, and those were part of. But also, we also looked at our budget. We had other good agencies, but a bit high on the budget, so we needed to balance up that. We've signed a 1-year contract with PC agents. I think it's taking off very well. But part of the contract we have signed, because we realized that our local agencies did not have this specialization in what we call destination marketing. And we didn't want to leave that to chance. So part of the contract we have, PC agents is mandated, it's mandatory for PC agents in the contract to work with a local agency. And the whole idea is knowledge transfer, but also to expose some of our agencies to actually what do these international agencies do so that we can build the capacity. That is locked in, so they'll have to look. We haven't unveiled yet, and that's why they were around. Part was also for them to meet different agencies that they can work with, and we are hoping that could work. So that's what motivated that move.
Absolutely. And, it's obviously quite interesting because even the timing itself, we heard from Honorable Sukumba at last week's event where we actually had the opportunity to even interview Paul Charles from the PC agency, where the foot traffic into Zambia, or rather air traffic, the number of tourists coming in has actually gone back to pre-COVID and even more improved than before. Just tell us what the next couple of months will look like, and how do you see yourselves leveraging off everything that you've put on the table to see how you grow, the tourism sector going forward?
You know what? It's the next 1 year is exciting. So much is going to happen. We've set ourselves a very ambitious target. We ended last year just below 1.4 million international arrivals.
What's the target for this year?
This year we are jumping to 2 million. We think having PC agency and all the other strategies we've put in place, 2 million should be a target that should be reasonable. We are ambitious. If we hit 2 million, it will be the first time in the history of Zambia to hit such a number. But what is even more important for us, what's the impact on the economy? What's the impact on job creation? What's the impact in terms of revenue or receipts for this country? Ultimately, that's what the target is all about. Believe you me, you can do your numbers. If you have 2 million tourists coming from outside, we are not ignoring the domestic one. The domestic one is ours and we keep it under wraps. But I'm just focusing a bit on the international. 2 million. If you just calculate it and say an average tourist who comes is going to spend even $500 a day on accommodation, food, and transport, and they stayed for an average of 3 to 5 days, believe you me, we'll be talking of in excess of 10 billion coming into this country in terms of receipts. You can do the accurate numbers. That's how much potential tourism has. But also the beauty is tourism is not like sectors like agriculture. It's not like sectors like mining. You can hit 10 billion easily in agriculture. You can hit 10 billion in mining easily. But what's the cost of getting that 10 billion?
Right.
Tourism is not like that. You use nature. You don't need a huge cost to get the Victoria Falls attract clients. It's natural, it exists. So the cost of actually bringing the 10 billion compared to the cost of bringing 10 billion in mining and agriculture and manufacturing is completely different.
Mr. Matongo, on a final thought, obviously there would be concerns around how, because tourism doesn't stand alone, and it depends, as you indicated, airlines, airports. We've noticed that there's been announcements on unlocking some airports here and there, but then there's also been concerns about the road network. How are you going to bridge those challenges with the various cooperating agencies? In short, is everybody on the table to say, look, they will help ZTA achieve its objectives?
I think that can be demonstrated. Thanks to our Minister, Honorable Sukumba, for pushing for us to get this World Bank funding we are getting. If you look at the 100 million that is coming from World Bank, 80% of that funding is going to infrastructure, because we think that there are certain products in the tourism side where infrastructure is a big challenge. So you see part of that money will go to putting some infrastructure around some of our major products in the northern circuit, the source of the Zambezi River. It's almost the beginning of bringing Kasaba Bay back as a tourism product. Liua, where we have the second biggest wild beast migration in Western Province, is coming on board, doing certain roads towards the national parks. So that is the plan, and we are getting 100% support from government. Minister of Finance is on board, Minister of Infrastructure is on board, and like indicated, the Minister of Tourism that is championing it. That's just an indicator of one of the working arrangements we have. But also, when you push tourism, tourists eat. So Ministry of Agriculture needs to know that part of their biggest market is the tourism sector. Yes. When you are calculating the performance of sectors, there's a temptation to think that agriculture is an end in its own. Agriculture produces, but the actual consumers are in the tourism sector. You know how much food hotels and restaurants buy, and that's tourism.
Correct.
So in a nutshell, we just sit in the center of working with all these ministries. And an interesting one that people never even think about, it's community development, the social sector, the education sector. They all feed into the tourism sector. And that's how we see the collaboration. And so far, it has been exceptional. We get almost every sector participate in what we do. But above all, it's the responsiveness of the private sector. There's excitement. For a long time, they put in one direction. Yes, exactly. As public sector, we put in another direction.
One can actually sense there's a bit of cohesion based on what we saw last week at the event that you attended.
And you and me know that things don't happen. Things are made to happen.
Correct.
So we sit right from the beginning of last year. Thanks to my board chair, he's part of private sector. He knows all the issues private sector had.
Correct.
The minister was part of private sector. He knows all the issues. And we say, let's have difficult conversation and find a way of working together. So after our board meeting, we take what we discuss, we bring the issues, we do a stakeholder engagement every quarter with private sector, and we have an open forum. They critique us, they give us suggestions. Even this plan I'm talking about, we workshopped it with private sector. It's their plan. It's a Zambian marketing plan for tourism. And I'm sure you experienced the last time you came, 300 plus private sector
Correct.
And public sector in tourism in one place. And there was so much harmony and excitement.
Yeah.
That's how the sector looks like.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Mr. Matamwandi, as usual, it's always a pleasure to host the guests, but this one has been very, very special. And we have been speaking to ZTA, Zambia Tourism Agency's CEO, Mr. Matongo Matamwandi. Mr. Matamwandi has actually exposed to us some of the nuances that are in this particular sector that are striving to drive development in tourism. So tune in for the next episode and get to know.